Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Nice to see you here tonight. We'll call the meeting to order. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise if you can. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we're going to start tonight's meeting with open forum. Is there anyone that would like to speak during open forum? But let me just say, sorry, before you raise your hands, because of the number of people that we have in the room tonight, we're going to do something that I really don't like to do, but that is put a time limit on people getting up and speaking. I'm going to time everybody and limit it to 5 minutes a person. Okay, just out of respect for everyone in the room. Okay. You also set up a public hearing. Oh, right. So if you don't want to speak now at open forum, and if you want to speak about the dogs or any of the other public hearings, you can do that then as well. So anyway, I've seen some hands, and I think I saw your hand first. I'm sorry, I don't know your name. So when you come up to the podium, please speak into the microphone so that the recording will pick it up, and so Roberta can hear you. State your name and address. Thank you.
Good evening. Lois Mignot, Rosemary Lane. You received a letter from me and copies of a new brochure that we have published. The Jamestown Invasive Plant Public Awareness Campaign was formed to promote an understanding that non-native invasive plants are a serious threat to the balance, productivity, and resiliency of Cononicut Island's natural habitat. In 2020, we released our booklet, Jamestown Invasive Plants, The Threat They Pose, to promote that understanding. The booklets have been available at Town Hall, the Rec Center, and the library. They have also been distributed to environmental groups on Jamestown. The Friends of Cononicut Farm republished the booklet with our permission, dropping Jamestown from the title, replacing 2 plant descriptions, and distributed it throughout South County. The Narrow River Preservation Association promoted the booklet in its April 2021 newsletter, Narrow River Notes. We are here tonight to present our latest booklet, Jamestown Native Plants, Why Protect Them, to help the people of Jamestown learn about the native plants and their ecology, and to promote the establishment and maintenance of stable native habitat. So I would like to describe to you my experience driving on North Road relative to these native plants. In late March, shad bush blooms. Shortly after that, red maple comes out in its glory, red glory, and it blooms. We also have red cedar at Round Marsh on North Road. In bloom right now, black elderberry, arrowwood just finished blooming, both white. Virginia rose can be found in small spots on North Road. Swamp rose, not listed in our brochure, can be found just north of the overpass in large masses. So it's really quite lovely to drive North Road and see these plants. Sweet pepper bush and winterberry come later in the year. There are 20 native plants that we cover in this brochure because native plants are far more common than invasive plants in terms of their numbers. We have 2 invasive plants that I would like to talk to you about relative to North Road. One of them is common reed, because you all recognize that as a big problem at Round Marsh. It's also a huge problem at South Pond, and now even at North Reservoir. Another plant that we see on North Road that's horribly invasive is Japanese knotweed. You can also see it from the bank parking lot, from the bakery, alongside McQuaid's parking lot, I believe still at our table, but certainly when Baker's was there, along Baker's parking lot, at Park Dock and on North Road. Let me tell you a little bit about that. 3/4 of Japanese knotweed biomass typically is underground in a root network. Patches are commonly a single plant, a rhizomal network. Moist grounds and riverbanks are preferred habitats. So North Road has a lot of open sewers, and it is the perfect area for the plant to move on. There are lots of areas that we already have knotweed, and if you cut knotweed and let it lay on the ground, it will root and create a new plant. We continually mow North Road and move the plant down the road. We also frequently see that if you have pieces of the plant that are within soils that is being moved around the island by landscapers, by the town, it also will germinate and create new, huge, underground biomasses of knotweed.
Is that the kind that, that goes up and it will attach itself to other plants as well? And
No,
this
looks
one.
a little bit like bamboo. It's really
okay.
lovely.
All right.
It has an oval leaf. It was brought as a landscape plant.
Yeah.
It became a huge problem in Central Park.
Okay.
Once you've seen it, you'll see it everywhere.
You don't have it pictured in this one. I think you had it pictured before.
It
is in this one?
It's in the invasives.
Oh, yeah, because
Wouldn't
it's
be
invasive.
in the natives.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't get that one.
So,
No, this is from before.
Oh, okay.
So-
Sorry.
Showed you.
I'm just asking you to sort of support this awareness. It can be very enjoyable if you pay attention to the native plants as you drive North Road, and it can also be really distressing when you see that knotweed is in yet another area. So I'm here to ask the town council to see what they can do to support this effort and to help us get rid of the invasives wherever we can.
You want to bring it up on another
Lois,
future agenda?
I'm going to put it on another agenda. I mean, first of
Okay.
all, what I want to say is what your group has done is incredible, just like the earlier one, the invasive plants. It's just an incredible effort. You are a ad hoc, self-created group that's made this absolutely wonderful 2 booklets that all Jamestowners should have, all homeowners should have.
I found
And
what I was talking about.
And so what we should try to do is find the money to be able to promote it, to have it be available readily, to maybe even get mailed out to our townspeople. So we'll talk about that at some other point. But also, I do know that the concern is that the town does mow and that they are in fact helping to propagate the knotweed. And so I think we need to address that. We'll put it on an agenda because I think it speaks to the need for the town to start to have some person that can help the town with this kind of, that can be there to help tell people what's going on.
That would
And
be
so
terrific.
that would be great. So our next meeting isn't until August 21st, but we will put it on for that.
Great.
This was what it is. This is what's taking over my yard, black swallowwort.
Right?
Yes.
That's the one that chokes the other plant. Oh,
Well,
okay.
and then-
Well, anyway.
If
And what you just described about the knotweed, I watched. I have clients who put in a new septic system and all new stuff, and a local landscape, very reputable guy put in this lovely, graded it all, and shortly, knotweed just took over the whole, and they had to pull out all of the dirt that they'd put in and put new stuff in.
Yes.
Thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you again. Sorry, we did take up a little more time. I didn't realize. Okay. Yes.
Hello, Christine Ariel, 61 Steamboat Street. 'Tis a season for dumping and speeding and big trucks on Steamboat Street. And I'm asking you to revisit the whole idea of blocking off that street in some way, shape, or form. We have plenty of things that are being dumped there on a regular basis along the side of the road. The other day when I went down, the culvert was almost blocked because somebody decided to put spent wood from their campfire down in the culvert. So where is that? I know the last time you took this up last year,
Mhm.
you had sent it to the traffic committee. What's our next steps on that? Because it can't just die and not be blocked off.
Well,
It's really a mess.
Can we
The-
answer that? Yeah.
Oh, I just
not
to
on the
explain,
agenda, yeah.
I know it's not on the agenda, but what had happened was that the police and particularly the fire department expressed great reservations
I saw
about
the
blocking
letter,
off.
but it shouldn't stop there because there are plenty of other alternatives to that. So has the traffic committee taken it up yet? Are they about to?
They did not because of that.
Okay, so,
You could write a request to us, and we can refer it to the traffic committee again.
okay, will do. In the meantime, could you cut the branches away from the two little no trucks signs on either end? Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. Yes, Carol?
I'm Carol Nelson Lee. I live at 23 Bowie Street in the Shores. I'm here tonight as a representative of Friends of Jamestown Rights of Way and Roads. There's one issue on the agenda that I wish to speak to, and that is the Whitford Avenue. You may know, likely you know, that anytime there's a subdivision that leads to the shore, a right-of-way is required. We fully support that notion. We were under the impression from the town administrator that there would indeed be a viable right-of-way, that it would be 4 to 6 feet wide, and that it would be separated from the road. I now read, it was in last week's, the previous town council's package, that there now appears to be a very different situation. It appears to be different in two instances, one of which is that the road and right-of-way have been merged as one.
I'm looking just...
And I'm not a lawyer, but
Mhm.
that's my impression, and I'd like to express some concern if that is indeed the case.
Okay. I'm just thinking that we have something on the agenda? Wait, you weren't planning on
That's
talking
on
about
the
that, right,
agenda.
right.
It will be,
So later this evening?
So I would encourage the town council to keep that right-of-way and keep it separate from the road and make it clear that it is a right-of-way for the public to use and enjoy.
Okay, thank you, Carol.
And,
Oh,
you
go
know,
ahead.
in the spirit of the Rhode Island Constitution, access to the water is guaranteed, so I am politely requesting that that happen.
Okay, so noted. Thank you, Carol.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Oh, all these hands. I'm going to go to this side of the room real quick. Oh, you can't hear.
can we check to see if it's on?
Is there a, somebody said if we turn the podium to the side,
Oh.
might be better. Do you think we could try that, Jamie? Turning the podium to the side so
Or
that...
best just ask people to speak up?
Speak up? Okay.
And bring the mic.
Yes,
I think
the
you just
mic-
have to really talk directly into the mic. Get close.
Okay, we'll try that with the next person. Yes.
1, 2, 3, can you hear me?
No.
Get
Can you
close.
pull it out a little bit?
Really close like that? How's that?
That's better.
Okay.
Good.
Unfortunately, yeah, sorry.
All right, my name is Star Snell. I live at 74 Steamboat Street, the lower part of Steamboat Street, the dirt road, and I'm concerned about the safety issue. Today, for instance, there was a truck that delivered material to a neighbor, blocked the street because it's narrow, and no one could get by. Now, if there was a fire or ambulance issue, I'm concerned about the safety. Also, the dumping, we have continually picked up stuff and tried to keep it neat. There's a lot of littering, and the road is used quite a lot by people in the community, walking,
strollers, children, bicycles, and I really think that something needs to be done to correct this problem. And so I would ask for you to consider that.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone else that would like to speak during open forum? Okay. Seeing no other hands, we'll move along. Next, we have acknowledgements, announcements, and presentations, which there are none. We will now move on to public hearings. The first public hearing is proposed amendments to the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 10, Animals, Article I, in general, Sections 1 through 2, Article 3, Dogs and Cats, Sections 10-73. These amendments are proposed to update and modernize the existing dog leash and dog at-large ordinance. Are you ready to speak? Would you like to address it?
Sure. Many of the people that are here are people who have shown interest and appeared at prior hearings, but just to try to give a brief synopsis of why we've got to this point, there was an issue and concern raised through our town council president in 2021 about the need for a look again at our grossly outdated dog ordinance. And that dog ordinance, and I just need to emphasize this because I know there are a lot of people here who are very concerned about the specific thing we're talking about tonight. But that dog ordinance provided, among other, to me, unreasonable things, that no dog could be on any beach at any time. And people that talk about how they've been exercising practices for years and years and years and swimming with their dog, the horse is long since out of the barn, and I'm sure Chief Mello is not interested in looking backward, nor is anyone on the town council. But I just can't resist having to point out that the starting point for this exercise is not a big no sign that pops up in people's faces, but a dog ordinance that said you couldn't be on the beach. And if you were going to be in a public area like Fort Getty, for example, you had to be on a leash. And not in any particular order, also in town, shockingly, you could be off the leash. In fact, you could be at large. Your dog could wander around the town during certain hours of the day. So I'm looking for common ground to try to make this a constructive exercise for all concerned citizens. But that was the starting point. And I don't pretend to have all the answers. I tried to ask the questions, and we tried to address those questions over a several months long process. And what we came up with respect especially to the beaches, which is why we're here tonight, is that the beaches would be completely accessible, even without a leash, during the off-season, the winter months, from September 30th, actually October 1st, I guess, until May 15th. And because the ordinance, by the way, the ordinance has been enacted. We're not here to enact an ordinance. We're here to amend one that was enacted in November. And I suspect that because the ordinance was enacted in November, it's quite understandable. People have a lot more important things to do in their lives than attend town council meetings. And so when the ordinance was first passed, we were in as respects the beaches, the period where dogs could be leashless on any beach anywhere, which was 100%, 180-degree turn from the prior ordinance. When it hit the fan, so to speak, was when we came to the next season, May 16th. And for those that may not have been inclined to be as attentive during the earlier part, suddenly it's in your face. Literally, the signs are in your face. And that's perfectly understandable. Since then, thanks to phone calls and input. I didn't mean to point at anybody. Phone calls and interaction and I hope constructive dialogue, it had come to my attention and I freely acknowledge it. When the beach provisions were proposed, the focus was largely on our, in all due respect to Park Dock and Heads Beach and all the other areas of shoreline that we all enjoy, our gem, our pride and joy, Mackerel Cove, was the focus. And the discussion, without revisiting every single piece of input from every person, it seemed clear that there was a large energy of people who wished to enjoy and exercise their dogs on the beaches, and there was a countervailing concern for the environment, largely for the environment. One of the concerns that has motivated other communities, among them Martha's Vineyard, Narragansett, Newport, virtually anywhere you go in New England, you will see more likely dog prohibitions on beaches than you will welcome, bring your dog, let's go swimming. And Sue, because we're late to the game, because we're just now amending a long-standing flawed ordinance, we tried to strike a balance. And as I said, our focus was on our prize, the town beach. And it seemed, from the consensus of input, that people would love to exercise dogs, and other people would like to be unmolested, so to speak, in its broadest sense, at the town beach, especially during the high season. And no, this isn't about catering to out-of-towners. This is catering to us. We all use Mackerel Cove. And I don't mean to simplify it overly, because it's a very complicated and I know sensitive subject. But dog feces and swimming and children and sand pails don't mix. And many towns, including our own, have suffered occasionally issues with respect to contamination that causes, as a health concern, the closing of the beach. Fortunately, those instances have been short-lived, and you read someone in this latest chapter of our evolving exercise together of trying to get it right, has forwarded something that's going on now in New York with the appearance, and it's not brand new, it's been around for a while, Toxicaria canis, toxicariasis, a disease that is carried by and through canine feces. So it's not as simple as someone who wakes up in the morning and gets pleasure out of keeping people off the beaches. It's a really tough job. It's an exercise of trying to balance public health interests, personal interests, and the like. More recently, there have been people who have weighed in on things that I expected to hear more about sooner, but they are also among the considerations about how we use our beaches vis-a-vis our dogs, and that has to do with the competition of other species in the environment, nesting birds, for example. I personally am no expert on this topic, but I do spend a lot of time in other areas, both in New England and Atlantic Canada, and know the extent to which other communities have put tremendous emphasis on the survival and rescue of the piping plover. And I don't, somebody can correct me tonight in this discussion, I don't think we have that particular issue, but the issue of nesting birds generally and the panic that is occasioned by I'm a dog owner, by the way. I hope you all know. I have 2 dogs. I love nothing more than to have them off the leash. But I do understand that when they frolic down the beach and the birds scatter, it isn't just ho, ho, ho. It's trouble. It's trouble for another species that shares the planet. Now, having said all that, I also fully recognize and tried to accommodate and incorporate that in the first iteration of this ordinance by saying, well, take a deep breath, cross your fingers, hope for the best, but I think we can survive between between October 1st and May 16th because the beaches aren't used by bathers, and there will be time for us to recover by the time the most headlong competition between humans and our dogs occurs in the high season. Having said all that, that's the background. The town beach was the centerpiece, and once the signs got put up and people realized it's a different season, there's an ordinance in place, they were understandably upset, and we heard from many people from Park Dock, people from Heads Beach, and even as the ordinance was passing, there were people that were heard from about Potter's Cove, and given the outcome, they obviously didn't prevail because the ordinance became what it was. I personally, upon the revisitation, thanks to all of you and your input, think that I got it wrong. I wrote the thing with input from all of you. I think that Potter's Cove, Heads Beach, and Park Dock are qualitatively different from our town beach in a way that can accommodate some relaxation of the high season prohibition for dogs. And to that end, we had welcomed input. We had a very constructive session here a couple of meetings ago at which people advanced all those notions, and it was suggested by several people, as it had been by someone even as the ordinance passed first in last November, that why can't there be a period in the morning and a period in the evening where dogs at Park Dock, Heads Beach, and Potter's Cove can enjoy the water and get refreshment the way a human does on predictably hot days. And so that's where we are, or where I think we are tonight. And as you, I'm sure, have seen, and what brought you here is the advertisement that suggests the proposal is that for those 3 beaches, there are 2 periods in the day being proposed. One is, I want to get the times right, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m., which was broader than the people who had proposed it to us as the early morning period. And the evening period has been designated 5:30 to sunset. Sunset was chosen only because as we go past the middle of June, days get shorter, and by the time we get to the end of the period, at the end of September, the dark will have set in much sooner, and so it seemed to make sense to make it a reasonable time in the evening, right around or before people's supper time, up until the sunset. Heads Beach, thanks to especially Mr. Sokolowski, it has been pointed out, and I admit, having lived here 40 years, I have not been to Heads Beach 2,000 times, or whatever number of times you suggested you have been, but I think I know the island well enough that I'm entitled to an opinion, I'm entitled to some input about it, and I respect fully what you said. I had not considered that. We as a council had not considered that there are two distinct sections at Heads Beach. There's a swimming section, and there's a section north of that is used differently. And those things are, from the research and visits I've done, are demarked by 3 jetties. And because you try to write ordinances with permanence, rather than talk about boat ramps and other land-based landmarks, it was thought that the jetties are likely to be there much longer than I expect to be here. And the southernmost one marks one side of the swimming beach, the middle one marks the other side of the swimming beach, and then north of that is the part of the beach that Mr. Sokolowski and others point out is rarely, except yesterday afternoon I was there and saw that bathers were using it yesterday afternoon. Not surprising, 4th of July, beautiful day. But it's used less frequently as a swimming area, and it was thought that that could be a section of the beach that could be opened. The swimming area is, I think, much more akin to the town beach. And so the proposal for Heads Beach was the same hours, 6 to 10 and 5:30 to sunset, on the area north of the middle jetty. So, and in response to a letter published in the newspaper, wondering, why are we doing this now? We asked as a town council for the review that the ordinance called for in November when it was passed, for a review in October. Why would we rush to change it now? Well, the reason, quite frankly, is I admit to having my eyes opened wider to the uses and possibilities for the 3 places we've talked about. And additionally, given the onset of summer, to wait would deprive people who, if there's an appetite for the town council to address and pass an ordinance like the one we advertised, to wait until our next meeting, which is the end of August, or after that, you will have basically increased the frustration of all of you who are here desiring to have more access with your dogs on the beach. So that's where we are, and I fully expect to get eggs thrown at me from both directions. You were way overboard. You were much too lenient in the first iteration, or you're much too strict even in your new compromise. But bring it on. That's why we're here.
Great, thank you.
Just let me know first so I can move over. I'm just going to move when you throw.
I'm going to go ahead. Did you want to speak? Okay, come on up.
Sheila Riley, Pennsylvania Avenue. I'm not going to throw eggs at you. In fact, I am quite grateful about the change that was made last fall. I think it's terrific. I only would point out a couple of things in considering whether the amendments are the appropriate amendments. All 3 locations are sort of north of the Great Creek. So for people who live on the southern end of the island, there might be a little traveling involved. I'm very close to Potter's Cove, so that doesn't really affect me too much. The second thing is that my understanding is that there's virtually no parking at Park Dock. There are a couple of non-resident spots and a couple of resident spots, and other than that, you're parking on the side of the road. And I even understand from somebody that there may have been a cop up there ticketing the other day. The Heads Beach location is a little more parking, but I think that it's a pretty small location. And even Potter's Cove. A lot of people end up parking on the road, the approach ramp for 138. The other thing I'll say is that one of the reasons that the parking is an issue is that I know my dog enjoys playing with other dogs. And so I'm trying to go to wherever I know the other dogs are. There will be more cars at any given time, and particularly if you narrow the times. I think the morning time is very generous, and that's great. The afternoon time, I would suggest, should start a little earlier, only because it does get darker sooner, and by the end of the September, you might be looking at maybe an hour before dusk arrives. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Laura Carlson, 20 Brook Street. Thank you. I was not a fan of the original iteration. I'm a big fan of the amendment to the ordinance. I had just 3 points I wanted to make. I think those times in the morning and the afternoon are very generous. I would just like the council to consider letting leashed dogs be on those 3 beaches during the day in the summertime from May 16th through September 30th. So I know a lot of people like to swim with their dogs, and those are easy to access. They're fairly level if you have any mobility issues. For Mackerel Cove, I love Mackerel Cove. I go there a lot. I would respectfully suggest that we have an ordinance that says dogs can be leashed there in the summer months before 9 and after 6. I know a lot of people, when the beach goers and swimmers kind of clear out, a lot of people like to go down there, but I also think it's not a good beach to be off leash in the summertime. I know a lot of residents enjoy swimming with their dogs as a form of recreation and exercise. And I do know from my experience in this field, when dogs are a nuisance, it's usually operator error. It's not the dogs that are the problem, and I just wanted to stress that. I did form a little ad hoc group, Jamestown Dog Owners Group, when we met at the deli, and we talked about what it's like to live in Jamestown with our dogs. And we did come up with a few things we'd like to work on around this ordinance, maybe in the future setting aside a little area for our little dogs to be off leash in a safe place. Install more dog waste stations with rolls instead of like the Kleenex box version of dog waste bags, rolls, so people don't take 15 at a time. Install poop fairy signs, that there is no poop fairy here. You have to clean up after yourself. And we saw that in Maine, they have an annual poop cleanup day. So April 1st, they go to their municipal dog parks or any other places where dogs are more likely found than not, and they have a contest to see who can pick up the most weight in dog poop. And if you win the contest, you get prizes from local businesses. So I think there's a lot of good ways to make Jamestown a more dog-friendly place, and I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Laura. Okay. Yes, Christine?
Christine Ariel, 61 Steamboat Street. As you know, I was not in favor of your original iteration, and I fear that the decision has again already been made before tonight that you're going to go forward with this, based on the comments that have been made in advance. So I would ask you to stick to your original rationale, which is to study this and come back to it in October. You anticipated that people were going to be upset when you put the signs up. That's no reason to dispense with the staff, perhaps even a consumer survey, the police department, looking at this so that you can look at it carefully again in October as you originally planned. And I'm the one that wrote the letter about the knee-jerk reaction, Randy. And so I feel strongly about that. The ordinance doesn't have any intent, statement of purpose. This is your opportunity to go and look back at the comprehensive plan. The last time I checked the comprehensive plan, it said something about the populace was in favor of protecting all the wildlife in the area and all the natural environment. How does this fit in? How does this fit in with your original rationale of sanitation and public health issues? Why is, in this iteration, head speech being singled out? I live in the Head Speech area. I go there every day. I've been going there for 33 years. I haven't counted whether it's 2,000 or more. But the point is that I know clearly exactly what's going on in that particular area. There's no difference between Mackerel Cove bathing and head speech bathing. The only difference is lifeguards. That's the only difference. People are sitting on the ground in the sand where I have watched dogs urinate and defecate. And I'm talking about both sides, because you may or may not know from your brief visits down there that the beach on the right-hand side, as you're facing the bay, is oftentimes a place where people will pull up their boats from sailing all day and sit all day in the sand. And those of us who are crowded out of the very narrow sand on the left side, on the south side, between the two jetties, when it's high tide, we'll go over there. So, this artificial distinction somehow between Mackerel Cove and head speech doesn't really cut it from a health perspective. Looking at the statutes that you looked at, DEM, Department of Health, it's all about sanitation, it's all about protecting us. You already mentioned something about diseases that feces carry. So there's multitude uses of head speech. What I would like to see is for you to take a step back and look at the multiple uses of all these places. I don't think it's fair to burden head speech either with all the dogs that aren't going to be able to go to Mackerel Cove Beach. I don't think it's fair 6 to 10. 8 hours a day you're giving them under this proposal. You got to be kidding me. People go to the beach at 8 o'clock in the morning. They don't want, I should say, I'll speak for myself. As a taxpayer, as a resident of Heads Beach, I can't speak to Park Dock. I do go to Potter's Cove and swim. As a resident, I don't want to be molested or harassed by people's dogs off leash that they can't control in the morning and at sunset. That's just the way I am. So there's no urgency. You don't need to amend it tonight. You do not need to amend it tonight. I would ask you to look at it more carefully and put an intention provision in. I was talking with Chris a little bit. The birds that go down there in the wintertime are birds that have traveled 3,000 miles. I mentioned this the last time we talked about this in November. It doesn't go to the birds that are there now nesting, but it is an important wildlife habitat. It is something that we need to look at from a multiple use perspective, not just human use, but also wildlife use. So if you could put together a comprehensive statement of purpose, rationale for these changes, it would go a long way to letting people know why you've cut off my rights and given the dog owners more rights. That's what I want in this ordinance. And in the meantime, they have the Battery Dog Park. Open year-round, off-leash. They have the rights-of-way. that they can take their dogs down to splash in the ocean. So you're not taking anything away from them. I just ask you to stick with your original plan, which was to study this carefully. I was going to read to you, but in the interest of time, I won't. There's a dog policy at the National Wildlife Refuge where I volunteer, and
Yep. I'm sorry, Christine, 5 minutes is up. I have to.
Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
there is a policy at the National Wildlife Refuge.
Thank you, Christine.
And I asked you to look at it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Good evening. Wayne Banks, America Way. I'm a longtime resident of Jamestown. Longtime resident of Jamestown. I've had multiple dogs the entire time, and I've enjoyed immensely going to the water, frolicking with the dogs, throwing a ball, watching them interact with other dogs. It's joyful for me, my wife, and the dogs as well. I recently visited all 39 rights of way. There's not one that's suitable to go in the water with a dog, or even the dog to go in. It's not a tick-infested bushwhack or something in between. Please allow me to speak.
It's okay.
While I applaud the proposed amendment, I don't think it goes quite far enough for me personally. I think it should start a little earlier, 5:30 in the afternoon. That's, for old people, that's dinner time.
Bedtime.
Bedtime. And so I would suggest that 3 to 3:30 would be more appropriate. I also have another proposal, that we have a shared space. Let's start with Park Dock, for example. The northern portion of Park Dock is rocky. No one swims there. Why couldn't we make that a doggable area? And secondly, Head Beach, as we already mentioned, the north of the boat, where it's considered to be a boat ramp, the kayak boat ramp. People don't swim in that. It's rocky. It's not very good. And a third location that's not been mentioned so far is Fort Getty. The south side of Fort Getty, where the concrete head wall is, or breakwater, not breakwater, but yes, no one swims there either. It's rocky, it's nasty, but not to a dog. A dog would still love it. I'm not sure why we couldn't have separate areas for dogs there. And in terms of enforcement, and some may have issue with, think that would be a little bit harder, but the Fort Getty area, you could limit it to just going in that 1 or 2 access points closest to the gatehouse. Just go in there and come out there, and they wouldn't have to interfere with anyone else that's on the beach. Similarly, Park Dock, if you stayed near the above the high tide mark, you could walk in there, not go down to the beach where people swim, and go to the rocky area with your dog and live in harmony with everybody else. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Running out of paper.
I'm Tricia McElroy. I live in the North End. But I'd just like to say...
What's your address, Tricia? What's your address, Trish?
34 Court Street.
Thank you.
I'd just like to say, when everybody talks about the pollution of dogs, the garbage of dogs, I've been here for almost 10 years, a little over 10 years, and there are plenty of people here that will back me up. I pick up a bag of garbage a day on the beach, and I pick up condoms, I pick up Tampax, I pick up dirty diapers, I pick up beer cans, everything. I'm going to start sending a picture, because I was going to start taking pictures and send it to you guys. So to say...
What area? I'm sorry, I missed...
All the beaches. I do
all of them.
Mackerel
Okay.
Cove. I've done Mackerel
Okay.
Cove. I have a guy lives right there. Oh, thank you. And I said, well, you could be doing this. Well, I got a dog. I'm walking my dog. I said, I'm walking 2 dogs. And so for people to say the dogs pollute, I'd rather have dog poop than I would have some of the human excrement that's left around. I've seen guys peeing, and I just think that's not fair. You go to Fort Wetherill and see the garbage that's there right now, because I've gone on strike and stopped picking it up, and they have no park ranger there. And the graffiti and everything else, it's all over the road. I was going to take pictures and bring that in. I mean, I'm not saying dogs are perfect, but as one person pointed out, it is true. It's the human that needs to control their dog. And my dogs aren't perfect, but we work with them. And I just think there are more dog owners in this town, and I think that you guys have offered a very viable solution to it, so, thank you.
Thank you, Trish.
Thank you for the trash pickup.
And for that, too. Yes.
Joan Hall, 34 West Bayview Drive. And I want to comment to thank Trish, because you don't know how much trash she has picked up winter, summer, all year long. I mean, we've watched, Trish would win the award for it. But anyways, one thing I would say, thank you for that, I think the amendment would be great, but a couple of things is, there's a website called Bring Fido. It's an app, actually, it's an app. And in Weymouth, Mass., there's a beach where dogs and owners can go like all day, and it's a dog beach. And I think the idea at Fort Getty is a really great idea, because in the summer I try to avoid places where there are a lot of people. I like to be with my dog alone. And one thing about Fort Getty is it's residents, so you don't have a lot of people wanting to pay $20 to come into the beach. So I think that suggestion about Fort Getty in the summer as a place where we could have our dogs, possibly a section that is all day long, would be pretty fantastic. So thank you, and hopefully we can all live together peacefully.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Oh, yes, sir. Go ahead, yes. Hi.
Chris Powell, 38 Mount Hope Avenue, Jamestown. Also past chair of the Conservation Commission, so I have a little bit of experience in this town. I've been here about 43 years, chairman for about 26 years. I basically want to address a couple of issues. One is Mackerel Cove. I'm a big birder. I do a lot of birding. I do a lot of bird photography. And Mackerel Cove is a good area for certain species. I did contact Dr. Charlie Clarkson, who's the Director of Avian Research at Audubon Society of Rhode Island, to get his opinion and his timeline for different species of birds on the beach. He does a study for that, for Audubon, for the Breeding Bird Atlas, and he gave me a timeline for 10 different species. I'll give it to you all. And basically what he said, I said, what times would you restrict at Mackerel Cove? And he would extend that to the end of October. There are 2 or 3 species in this list that he gave me that frequent the beach up till the end of October and actually into November, but he felt the timeline from May to the end of October was much more appropriate for bird species. And I think I've told you in the past, through an email or whatever, that I did experience dog chasing birds up and down the beach, and the owner thought it was quite fun to see the dog chase the birds, but like Christine said, some of these birds fly thousands and thousands of miles nonstop, and Mackerel Cove is one of the places they stop to feed. So we have to consider the wildlife on the island and not just the dogs. I'm not a dog hater. I love dogs. I have nothing against dogs at all. I just think that we need to have a mix and a happy mix between the two. So I would suggest that we move the ordinance to the end of October. It's a time when there's not a lot of people at the beach anyway. I would caution you about the beach at Fort Getty. We don't know enough about that beach yet. I was there the other day, and I'm sure it's frequented by certain species of bird. We'd have to find that out before we made any broad, sweeping, let dogs everywhere type of ordinance. The final thing that I just wanted to say was that I'm also the trail steward for the Conservation Commission. And there are a couple of trails that we do have dogs on leash requirements. And one is the Kit Wright Trail. When we put that trail in years ago, we posted that as dogs on leash. This is all through the Conservation Commission. Dogs on leash for that trail. That doesn't mean the park, that just means that particular trail. There is a new osprey platform that we put out there a little while ago. It has birds on it. Dogs can run through there and can distract them. So dogs on leash there is not a problem, but I think that's one area they should be on a leash. The other area is the South Pond Trail. We put that trail in years ago. It runs from the water treatment plant all the way to South Pond. Dogs should be on leash there. There are certain species, the ovenbird, the wood thrush, which is maybe listed someday. We have those on the island, and the black and white warbler. These are ground nesting birds, and dogs can disturb them pretty easily. So I think there's a place for both. And Randy, I applaud you for your efforts on the ordinance, because I think it's a long time coming. So I would basically just say that, certain areas are good for dogs, other areas they need to be restricted, and sometimes we need to consider both man and wildlife, or people and wildlife, when we do this. The final thing is, I don't know whether you want to incorporate this into the ordinance about the dogs on leash for those two areas, for the Kitride Trail and the South Pond Trail. And the final one is the Connecticut Island Sanctuary, which is next to the golf course. All pets are prohibited from there.
Prohibited
Prohibited,
completely.
sorry. Yeah, prohibited. And that was a Conservation Commission, they supported that idea when I came up with the idea years ago. I have seen people in there with dogs. I've asked them if they saw the sign. They said no. I said, well, you walk by two of them to get in here. I don't have a problem if people really don't see things, but I posted 3 signs in the sanctuary, so people should know that dogs are not allowed in the sanctuary. We do have a lot of ground nesting birds in there, and I walk it almost every week, a couple times. So, anyway, those are my comments.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Let me give you just
Interesting.
a copy of what I put together.
Oh, okay.
Have it for future reference or reference now. And the scientists, I like that.
Thank
I don't like hearsay, so
Thank you.
basically the table at the bottom is what Dr. Clarkson put together for bird nesting and use of the beaches. So
Thank you.
anyway, thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Nancy?
Hello, I'm Nancy Lush, 17 Bay Street. So earlier I submitted a letter to the council with kind of constructive suggestions to maybe resolve some of these issues. And as, you know, some of the issues particularly that we heard in the previous...
Oh, I'm sorry, Nancy, they can't hear you. Can you bend it down maybe a little bit? Would that help you?
How's that?
That's better.
Okay. So earlier I submitted a letter with constructive suggestions on how to solve some of the problems, listening to the issues that we heard. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you gotta stay close
Can
to
you
it.
pull it up out of the holder?
No,
I mean, like
no,
ours?
you
No, it
can't.
won't come out? Okay, just bend it down more maybe.
All right. Give me a nod and I'll try to, if you don't hear. Okay. In the last 10 days, I've been kind of scratching my head trying to figure out both what the objective is and how these issues might best be solved. So it's my opinion that if you're a dog owner, you should know how to be a responsible dog owner, along with all of that entails. I sympathize with anyone who have been frightened or felt unsafe. Dog owners who have created those situations should control their dogs. There's always been some folks that follow the rules, and then there are some that always ignore them. It seems like this ordinance will restrict only the well-meaning, good Jamestown citizens. So we have busy days during the summer when beaches are crowded, like last weekend. But Jamestown is an island with many beaches. Many of those beaches are empty most of the time. Does anyone really object to a person and a dog walking on an empty beach? Many beaches here are rocky and not conducive to sunbathing or swimming. Do we really need to prohibit usage of those beaches by a person and their dog? A typical day for a Jamestown resident might be get up in the morning, work in the garden, or perhaps mow their lawn. Then, being hot, that person and the dog might go to the beach for a swim. If they're not bothering anyone, then what is the problem we're trying to solve? A normal routine might be to walk the dog early or late in the day, but what if one has commitments in the evening or early a.m. and needs to walk at another time? If they're not inconveniencing anyone, should there really be a restriction? And what about varying tides? Many beaches are unwalkable during high tides. Based on suggested times, can we not walk our dogs on days when the tide is high during our allocated hours? So kind of after stepping back and thinking about this, I was confused. What exactly can good Jamestown citizens not continue to do what we've always done? If dog owners were responsible dog owners, we would not have an issue. Creating new rules will only impact those already responsible and just add more restrictions where perhaps they are not necessary. And I'd like to leave you with just several comments and questions. One for a question, do you intend to legislate private beaches? And I kind of say that in regard to the comment of this applies to all beaches except. And by limiting access to a few beaches, you're effectively creating dog parks on those beaches named. Dogs in large numbers can often be a problem. Are you in fact creating an issue that would not otherwise have been? And I'd like to point out that we used to have a dog officer. That worked great for everyone. She was a great asset to the community, and because she was also an animal officer, she covered many other issues. She understood the community and was a helpful addition. During those years, we did not have what we call dog issues. I propose we eliminate one police officer and reinstate the animal control role. That person can understand the community and issues instead of creating imperfect legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Oh, okay. Sure. I didn't call on you yet. Okay, you can come up now.
The other person is right behind you.
I know, yeah.
Hi, Bill Sokolowski, 54 Steamboat Street. I've appreciated working with you folks on this matter. My concern specifically is Heads Beach. I said I take my dog to Heads Beach on a regular basis. Heads Beach is not a dog park. There are very few dogs you will see on Heads Beach. Most of the time it's just Bo and myself. Once in a while we'll see one or two other dogs. I think the lady that was just up said something about making time windows to come in. Then you're going to maybe jam more dogs into a smaller space, which isn't necessarily a great idea, okay? I think it's more important that people manage their dogs. I see very little dog waste on the beach. Myself and the other people that use the beaches tend to pick up. Today, Bo and I were down at the beach, and I picked up trash like I usually do and dumped it in the trash can. That's just the way that it works. That's what a good citizen does, and most of the dog owners do that. I do have a question about the ordinance that says north of the middle jetty. North of the middle jetty to where? To the north end of the island, or just to the third jetty? Because the third jetty is the town beach. Okay, after that, that's coastline, and I could walk the coastline all around the island if I want to. All right, so
You can add the words to the third jetty.
And the reason I say that is what I did today, and the chief is here, and I'm open for arrest, is I run a business. I do work part-time still. I run an international business where I'm busy in the morning with emails from overseas. So quite frequently, I don't walk my dog until after lunch. But when I walked down there, we walked in the entrance by the porta potty, and we took a right. And we walked. I kept him on a leash until we got to the third jetty, the middle jetty, the third jetty on, and then I let him off leash. And that's a great place to do it because now I'm beyond the beach. We use that as an access to get in. I let him off leash. He goes up the beach, does his thing. There's a freshwater creek that comes in, through the swamp there. He's smart enough to drink fresh water, not salt water. He takes a drink of that fresh water to help him get back. He went for a little swim, and then we walked back out on leash. So that's a nice access to get to past that third jetty. It's convenient, and again, as I said in one of my 3 emails that I sent to you, I think you'll find the majority of the people who live in the shores, who use Heads Beach, the majority of those people, they want to keep things as is, as best they can. But I totally agree with during the summer, not using the swimming portion of Heads Beach, stay away from there. It only makes perfect sense.
But what do you mean by as is?
Pardon me?
What do you mean by as is?
I don't mean as is with, I'm willing to go along with, an ordinance. I mean, to be frank with you, the old ordinance that was very restrictive, in practice, it was never, ever, pushed. Right. Nobody ever practiced it, so there was no ordinance.
Right.
It might have been a paper. But I guess as is may have not been the right words, okay? But I find it convenient to go for myself at noontime, and you might find me cheating, okay? But I'm not going to be on that beach. I'll go past the third jetty, right, and then go to the open coastline. Okay. But thank you.
Thank you. Michael? Everyone's going to get their turn. Come on, Michael. You can do it. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you have your hand raised? I just raised it. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I didn't look that far over.
Good evening, everyone. Mike Pinksaw, 951 East Shore Road. I know I probably don't need to stand as close to the microphone, but it is what it is. So I was probably one of the first ones to jump on the phone when I had my nice big shiny brand new sign at Park Dock. and looked on the website and saw Randy's home number and was like, ooh, there's Randy's home number. And it was even more surprising when Randy actually answered it. That was probably the more surprising part. So, I'll start this off by saying that I do not envy you, Randy. You have had a task in front of you. You had to do what you had to do. But, you know, obviously there's lots of people who found some inaccuracies or improprieties, whatever you want to call them. So I'm just kind of coming up to state, hopefully within my 5 minutes, what I had discussed with Randy, is that with Park Dock, my big concern is delineation. All right? If you look at the GIS website, the property line for the town beach, which used to be the Notre Antonio property, runs right down the middle of the jetty. So if I go down the right side of the jetty and then bang a left below the mean high tide mark, I'm not technically on the town beach anymore. I'm below the mean high tide mark. There's also 3 or 4 different rights of way north of that, Fairview Street, Broadway, and a couple of other paper roads that are still accessible. Some of them are less than others, that I can go down and get onto the beach and then bang a right and go back towards the town-owned Park Dock Beach. So without delineation, I don't see how you enforce it. Not to mention the fact, no disrespect to Chief Mello and the men and women of the Jamestown Police Department, they all do a great job. Chief Mello's not posting anybody up there to enforce dog ordinances 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They got bigger fish to fry. So, you know, it's a cornucopia of issues, and again, I'm trying to stay on the dog ordinance, but the ordinances at Park Dock don't get enforced at all anyway. You know, the first day that the shiny new sign went up that said no dogs on the beach, there's also a sign right next to that that says no open fires. There was 4 kids down the beach having an open fire on the beach. Somebody had an open fire on the beach on the 4th of July, right? People litter on the beach down there. Again, just like a couple of other people stated, other rights of way and other beaches in town. Massive problem with trash. My wife has a picture from yesterday of trash everywhere up there. People still, even with access to a porta-john, people still defecate in the woods. And as far as, and to stay on that track, we talk about canine bacterias and toxins. A coyote, technically speaking, I would assume is a canine. Nobody's going down to pick up canine poop. Nobody's going down to pick up goose poop. Nobody's going down to pick up deer poop. There's 8,000 different creatures that probably poop on the beach down there that have some sort of toxin that nobody's going to pick up, where the majority of us that walk our dogs down there do. And, you know, even the other day, you know, those that are irresponsible and leave their dog feces behind gets picked up by myself, Tom, Melissa, whoever else, all the rest of the users of Park Dock. So to say that dog feces is a problem, all right, yeah, I kind of get it when it gets left behind by the irresponsible person, but I'm sure all those same bacteria and toxins probably exist in some way, shape, or form in wildlife. You know, again, I'm not a wildlife expert, so I may be speaking a little out of turn. So that being said, I would personally, you know, I'm a big fan of kind of the dogs only thing, but the dogs only beach. But typical Jamestown fashion, the Fort Getty Beach is too far from the north end for me to bring my dog down there. You know, and I do say that half jokingly, but I'm actually half serious. So I mean, we live right at the top of Broad Street, which leads down to Park Dock. Why would I want to put my dogs in my truck or in the wife's car and drive to Fort Getty when I can just go down to Park Dock Beach, which has always been known as the neighborhood people as Park Dock. You know, Park Dock's been known as Dog Beach. We've never had a problem. So again, Randy did a tremendous job, but I have to agree with one of the ladies that spoke before that, you know, as far as Park Dock goes, we're trying to solve a problem that really, in most people's eyes, doesn't exist. Dogs have been down to Park Dock. I've been living with, you know, up the north end for 18 years now, 19 years, and have never had an issue at Park Dock with any canines. All of them, if they're not well behaved enough to be off leash, they stay on leash. If they are well behaved enough to be off leash, they go swim with their owners, have a great time. They come up and greet our dogs. When we bring our dogs down there, it's always, hey, our dogs will come say hi if you want us to let them, if you want them to come say hi, but otherwise, leave well enough alone. So I will tell you that we get tons of positive comments with our 2 pups. We go down there, and even the out-of-town fishermen that leave the messes behind, their kids are forever, oh, I want to come see your big fluffy dog. So we have great interactions down on the beach with our pups, and I'd hate to see that stop. And again, great job, Randy. You're trying to please, you're trying to please everybody, and you can't. So, I give you all the credit for trying, though. So, on that note, I'm all done. Thanks for the time.
Thank you, Mike.
Hi, good evening. I'm Carol Tassili, and I live at 1052 East Shore Road, and I just want to stand up to say that I appreciate the changes to the ordinance. I was a vocal opponent of the original ordinance, and I agree with the other homeowners. I can really only speak for Park Dock. It really hasn't been that much of a problem. It's a small area that the dog usage was by people walking, and I think I just caution, if you do decide to make that a technical dog beach, the dog walkers and the dog owners and the people that live down there, we are the ones that pick up the trash. So don't shoo us away, because I think we're helping you. So just keep that in mind, that the trash really is an issue, and probably much more so than the dog feces. But I do endorse the changes to the ordinance.
Thank you. Yeah. Oh, no, the lady behind you, no.
She's joking.
I'm just joking.
Leslie Harkins, 10 Narragansett Ave, and I'm going to echo some other folks. Randy, I think you've done a yeoman's job tackling this, and I know you said it was your mistake in terms of the beaches in the ordinance. I don't see that as a mistake with respect to the beaches. I see that as a starting point. So you didn't make any mistake, not from my perspective. I think you've done an outstanding job. I support the amendments wholeheartedly. I am in agreement with, Mackerel Cove in the summertime. That is the beach that everybody goes to, and this weekend, it's like every weekend in summertime, it's packed. I don't believe any dog should be at Mackerel Cove in the summertime during those periods of time. Periods of times for Heads Beach, Park Dock, Potter's Cove, I think those are very reasonable. I would ask if there's an opportunity to push the one in the afternoon back to 4:30 instead of 5:30. But I just want to reinforce, Randy, you've done a great job. I also want to thank the council for the meeting a few weeks ago when you very patiently listened to all of us and our suggestions. So you've done a great job, too. So
Thank you. We appreciate that. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Tom Alexander, 959 East Shore Road. And first of all, I want to thank Mr. White for everything you've done here. I know it's tough to accommodate such a group. I'm a Park Dock guy, and I just want to say I fully support the changes. We've been walking our dog down there since we got her last year. She loves to swim. I walk down the beach, and I've never had to pick up anybody else's feces. I've found the dog runs off in the woods and finds chicken bones people have thrown in there, and I've picked up dead animals and, there's stuff, but we're a pretty clean group up there, and I think everybody's aware of the situation, and it's pretty valuable to us to be able to just walk out the door and hit down the beach and take a walk with the dog, take a swim with the dog. So I appreciate it, right?
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you for this opportunity. Lisa Lepore, 82 Beacon. There have been some salient points made tonight, and I just want to mimic them. There are no bad dogs, there's just bad humans. And this Jamestown is an absolutely beautiful place.
Have you ever been an hour with my dog?
I was going to say, you want to trade? Because mine's a princess.
No. She hasn't met mine either. No.
I just want to say that I'm in favor of the amendment. It is quite a conundrum, but to delay the decision, I think, would give great heartache to a big populace of the community. And I think that
there's been some great work. You know, I would always say that, you know, if it's unfinished and you still want to discuss it, maybe an ad hoc subcommittee with the community can be formed to get into the details. Obviously, not all places, it shouldn't be one size fits all. We have very unique places here that have, you know, maybe want specific details and rules and regulations. And again, with all due respect to our police officers and our community people, if it's not policed, what's the point? And I would have to say that people who own dogs are good wardens. Again, with all of them, I pick up so much garbage, and I think without us, maybe our beaches wouldn't be as beautiful as they are. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Lisa. Is there anyone else? I think it's time to recap. Michael. No. Melissa, do you really want to speak?
Come on.
One more.
She said.
Is that okay? Yeah. Okay, and then we're going to turn it over. Okay, hi.
Melissa Hicks, 951 East Shore Road, and my comments are in regard to Park Dock. As far as time limits for the beach, just keep in mind that there are people like myself that work off the island, so I'm literally out the door at 7 a.m. and I'm not back till 6 or 7 o'clock at night. So with those time restraints, I would never be able to walk my dog on the beach. And I do understand the concerns about the wildlife, so I would be in favor for dogs on the beach on leash anytime, 7 in the morning till dusk or whatever your time limits are. And Park Dock in particular, like Michael said, there's no boundaries there, so where does Park Dock actually start and end? And I believe there's a deeded right-of-way there that pre-exists the Notre Antonio donation of that parcel. And how would you restrict access to someone with a dog at a deeded right-of-way? Like he said, if we are on the low tide mark and then we cross through the Park Dock portion, which that beach is only 275 feet long if you look at the plat maps. So it's a very short beach, but we shouldn't be restricted from coming down Broad Street, going down the deeded right-of-way, walking in the high tide area or mean high tide to get past the actual town beach section of it to be allowed to go down the rest of the beach and then come back up one of the other deeded right-of-ways. Like Michael said, there's at least 3 that empty on to not Park Dock Beach, but that section of the water. So that's all I have.
No. I think I was just going to say that I mean we've listened. I don't know if you've noticed or not, but the counselors were taking copious amounts of notes, like we always do, but especially in this subject. But what I heard from you just now, which I think is you hit on something, and that is at the beach, anytime on a leash.
Right.
I spend a lot of my time out at Beavertail working, and dogs are allowed out there all the time on a leash. So I think, I'm not saying that's what we should do. I'm just saying that I heard you. Okay.
Yeah,
and I think that you hit on something.
We just came back from vacation in Maine, and Arcadia Park is a national park. They allow dogs anywhere on the national park on a leash. And, with the expectation that you're supposed to pick up after your dog, which every dog owner should do anyway. But it is kind of disappointing that I can go on vacation and walk my dog anywhere at a national park, but I come home and can't walk my dog in my own neighborhood at the beach.
Right.
So,
No, I think you made a good point.
Thank you.
You all did, but thank you. Now I think it's time to let Randy speak.
Is your name Lisa, did you say? It is. Okay. I just wanted to reference you because, as Nancy pointed out, something in the last spokesperson's presentation struck her, or something about what you said struck me, and that's this. I can't account, and don't pretend to try to account for how we got here, but the agenda item tonight is pretty close. It's a close focus, an advertised proposed ordinance for 3 beaches, Park Dock, Heads, and Potter's Cove, and 2 time periods. And I, too, took a lot of notes, and one side of me says, I wish we had this audience, not to minimize those people who participated in the evolution of the original ordinance, but the investment and the energy you have demonstrated tonight would have been well placed in the construction of the thing to begin with. The other side of me says, if we had this chorus of voices, we wouldn't have any ordinance, because we'd still be talking about the exceptions and the additions and the deletions and the variations. So what occurs to me, in all due respect to Ms. Ariel, who isn't here any longer, who acknowledged having written that letter, why now? How does it comport with the master plan for the island? I submit simply this. We proposed an ordinance that I think was largely a big step forward. Whether we got it wrong or it just needs tweaking, the summer part may have been too restrictive. This proposal tonight loosens the reins a little bit on that. If we enact this, and I'm speaking to my fellow councilors, if we enact these proposed amendments in response to what Ms. Ariel was pointing out, we won't be studying it in a vacuum. We will have seen in October, when we have asked for a review from the town staff for how's it going, we would have the addition of how did it go between 6 and 10 at these three places? How did it go between 5:30 and sunset at these three places? And I personally would hope that that would be constructive and instructive to confirm, no, there aren't competing bathers, no, there isn't a nest of birds that we've killed off, rendered extinct. I don't mean to be flippant at all, please understand. But it would just give us more of a math set to work from about whether we've got it right or wrong. And there would be plenty of time, and I'm sure plenty more, for us to be back here and either broaden it further, retract it, open other ideas which came up about previously kind of ignored, Fort Getty Beach, all the things that people talked about. Everyone had great ideas. And so, but but for better or worse, we're stuck with what's on our agenda.
Because if we don't,
and if we don't pass that tonight, if we don't do something tonight,
can't add, yeah.
you'll be stuck and you'll be cursing me and the signs for the rest of the summer. Not Mike, of course.
Yeah, you have to come up here,
Well,
though.
maybe
He just
Mike.
has a quick question for you.
Yeah.
A quick question, Michael.
I don't even know if this is actually within the bounds of decorum here. Mike Pinks on 951 East Shore Road. So we're coming up on almost roughly 2 months since the signs went up. Can the chief speak to, has he been taking any sort of, I don't want to say poll, but has there been any sort of input as far as, like, have officers been going down to the beaches and saying, we've seen somebody on the beach with their dog? Has any of that occurred? Yes. All right. So you can't speak to numbers, I would assume, but...
I would not say the numbers of dog complaints we had decreased or increased since the ordinance has gone into place and the signs have been installed.
Okay. All right. Just curious. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just wanted to say a couple things. It's pretty obvious why that original ordinance wasn't changed for a long time.
I can tell you why.
And of course, I assume that most of you are really happy that we stopped making you all criminals. Because for like a decade or two, you let your dogs run loose totally illegally on beaches throughout the state, throughout the town of Jamestown. So and I want to applaud Randy too. We let him take all the heat. and he's gotten more heat and he's gotten credit, but he's got a couple credits already there tonight. But remember, I want to take some of the credit. We did all pass what we passed, and some of it wasn't all bad. I agree with Randy, what he just said, which was it's hard to say because, okay, there's a couple of things. One, our next meeting's not till late August. So if we don't pass what we put on here tonight, then we won't do it. Then it'll go with no running loose on the beach. The second thing is that somebody always says things like, well, once you pass this, then I won't be able to ever walk my dog on the beach without a leash forever. Well, this is, and this was also brought up very well by Randy, and the idea that what this is we will probably, I'm in favor of passing what Randy and we came up with as far as what we've already done. There is a lot of difficulty in where you're going to put the poop bags and stuff like that. That's really nothing to do with the ordinance. That's just we set up the places. But we've established an ordinance. Randy did a great job at being a dog owner. I know we received a couple of complaints. Why did we let a dog owner do that? But then if we let a non-dog owner do it, then they'd say, why the people who, whatever that person did, they'd say, why did you let a non-dog owner do it? So, one letter I believe we received said that none of us live on the north end, so how do we know? Well, I don't live in the north end, but my son and his family does, so it's, and I even have a couple of grandpuppies.
I do too.
So, they have a great time out there in the north end, and they live near Head Beach, and actually Reggie, the new French bulldog, got to take a swim there just the other day, probably illegally. But what I'm for is we like the idea so much. When you came here before and gave us those, how about early morning, afternoon, or late afternoon type of thing, we thought that was a great idea and worth passing before the summer was over. And so I will encourage everybody maybe we should vote for this because I think it's a fair thing to go. This is not set in stone. We don't do things in stone anymore. That was given up a long time ago. So pretty much all the ordinances, we're living in an age right now where there are ordinances on our books that are just totally meaningless. And they were ordinances that nobody enforced, and it's nobody's fault. It was just it was okay a while back to do a lot of different things that now in today's world it's not okay anymore. And there's every argument that people made today for changes sounded pretty good, and some of the arguments making for there was too many changes sounded pretty good. I always want to tell the story. I'm willing to live with it, and I was willing to live with it, and I did sit on the ground. But I lived in Bayview condos for a decade or more, looking out on the Veterans Square and knowing that during the time I lived there were 10,000 dogs that went to the bathroom on that green grass, and there were 5,000 people who sat on that grass, a number of July 4th stuff and all that. So and there is, you go, ew, you don't really think of that. But there is always a pretty good argument sometimes to think about that. So what we're trying to do is and I said this when we passed the ordinance back in November, is that it's like everything seems to be a negotiation anymore, and in a good negotiation, nobody's happy when you pass the thing. So, but I think I would be happy tonight if we could pass this.
So to that end, I will make the motion to pass the ordinance as it is, and I make that mindful that we may tweak it further, and I hope you understand that we will, and I hope you see that we have that tendency. And to Chris Ariel's concerns of why are we doing this now, and I know she's not here. I fully expected to have done this sooner. I fully expected that after November, with the fervor that was expressed by people, that the people would have been at our next meeting, and they weren't. And it just so happens that there are issues that start to come at you fast in this job, such as the budget. And so it didn't happen until the signs went up. Now imagine if the signs had gone up articulating the old ordinance that would have said, no dogs ever on the beach, you know? So I think it's simply, you know, the presence of the signs brought you all to the reality of a new ordinance, but the old ordinance was terrible. And that was what we were really striving to repair. And we are striving to repair this one now. And so to that end, I make the motion that we pass the ordinance as it's written, the changes to the ordinance as they are written.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, second. All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you all for coming.
You guys can come back and applause anytime you want. That's really nice.
We're just going to give you a couple minutes to...
Yeah.
Okay. Somebody...
It could be his.
Is that your jacket?
Is that your bag?
I forgot his name.
Might be his.
Mr.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's a good question. The chief probably knows the answer to that better than anybody else. It's not a legal, it's not a legal
You know what I'm going to do? I'll put that on for August. I'll put it on for next year.
And I think for
Yep, that's
every
okay.
dog on a
No,
leash for sure.
that's great.
But the
I
beaches are
agree.
considered,
And then
parks are closed
I
without
will
even.
put it on to change it in August.
Thank you. Okay, excuse me, everybody, we have to continue with the meeting, so...
But Beavertail's a state park.
So if you wouldn't mind, thank you again. Thank you, thank you. Okay. Next, I will entertain a motion to convene as the Alcoholic Beverage Licensing Board.
Move to sit as the Alcoholic Beverage Licensing Board.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You want me to do it again?
Yeah.
Oh. I'll leave it in the middle. We can... Thank you. She was egging me on. It wasn't me.
No.
Okay, so we have an applicant
Hang
for...
on, the town clerk's not here.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so this evening before us, we have an applicant for a Class F nonprofit license, liquor license, Jamestown Art Centers, the applicant 18 Valley Street, Jamestown. This is for the following dates, July 12th, July 21st, August 18th, and August 26th at the Jamestown Art Center.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous, thank you. Okay, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn sitting as the Alcoholic Beverage Licensing Board.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous, thank you. All right, next we have licenses and permits. We have an applicant for a one-day event entertainment license. The applicant is the Jamestown Art Center. The event is what are they calling that? I don't know.
Well, they're
not really calling...
multiple events.
Yeah, they're not, okay, all right.
July 12th, July 21st, July 22nd, August 6th, August 9th, August 18th, August 26th, September 9th. Sorry.
That's okay, no, that's fine.
Multiple names.
Multiple, okay. And the location to be at the Jamestown Art Center.
Move to approve this entertainment, one-day event and entertainment license.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous, thank you. Our next applicant is the Jamestown... I'm sorry.
Before we move on, one thing to point out, I guess, if there's anybody from the Jamestown Arts Center here.
Is there? No. No? Okay.
If I'm right, the last one of that list for the one-day entertainment application is program called Resurfacing on September 9th, and it says that they expect to have alcohol, but alcohol, it wasn't part of the...
Yeah, but, so they could still apply presumably.
Right.
You just want to point that out, okay.
Is anybody here from the Arts Center that they should apply for that if they want their alcohol?
Okay,
So then they don't.
I see. Okay, thank you. Thanks.
I see.
Interesting.
So there is a limit
Yes.
on the Class F, and that, and Class F is just when they offer, have somebody sitting there offering wine for sale. Gotcha. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, did we vote on that? I don't remember now. He got me sidetracked. Did we vote on that? No? We did? We did vote on it, okay. The next applicant is the Jamestown Striper Club. The event is the Jamestown Striper Club's Kids Fishing Derby, held on August 13th, 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. at the North Pond Reservoir.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. It's unanimous, thank you. The next applicant is the Jamestown Senior Center, Town of Jamestown. This is for their annual senior picnic at Fort Getty, Wednesday, August 17th, 2022, 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. at the Fort Getty Pavilion.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous, thank you. Our next one is the Jamestown Ukraine Relief Project. The event is the Sunflower Family Festival, Saturday, August 27th, 2022, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., held at the Lawn Avenue School Grounds, contingent upon approval from the Jamestown School Department.
I would move to approve contingent on Jamestown, the approval from the Jamestown School Department.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, it's unanimous. All right, next we have a vendor peddler one-day license. This is, the applicant is the Rotary Club of Jamestown. The date is Saturday, August 6th, 2022, 8 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Location is East Ferry.
I have a question about, what is this event? Okay, where do they plan to be? But not on Veteran Square. So on the grass, the triangle to the left?
Oh, they're going to sell doughboys, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but not on Veteran Square.
Not in, yeah, no, we were.
And
we-
sell fry bread and stuff.
By what?
I know what they do, just not on Veteran Square.
Yeah, no,
That's what I'm trying to make
I
clear.
was good.
Yes, please. Yes, thank you, Roberta, I appreciate it. I would make the motion that we approve this as long as the doughboys are not located on Veteran Square.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous, thank you. All right, next on the agenda is the administrator's report, but there is nothing to report at this time. Okay, thank you. We'll move on to unfinished business, review, discussion, and or action for the Jamestown Planning Commission findings and conditional approval letter. Draft road maintenance. Who's here for that? Oh, should have known. No. Nice to see you, Christian.
Yep.
Christian Fantolino, for the applicant Palo Alto LLC.
Something wrong?
Nothing.
Oh, okay.
You're fine.
I support the Doughboys too.
Okay.
For
But not on Veterans
But
Square.
not on Veteran.
Wherever they are, I'll go, and I'll respect not on Veterans Square. Last meeting, I gave you the presentation on the maintenance agreement, for Palo Alto and the LLC. It just so happened you did not have, my revisions and the draft that Peter, had put together. So I believe today you have in your package, a document labeled Road Use and Maintenance Agreement. It should have my revisions on it. If it doesn't, I will go through the few of them, quickly with you. Other
Your
than that,
revisions are handwritten in?
my revisions are handwritten.
Okay.
Handwritten in. So they're located in, two whereases.
Yep.
And then the removal of, item number 5.
Is this what, what's her name?
This
Carol
was a, this was
Carol
a-
Nelson Lee.
This was a concern
of-
that we were losing. I'm not here to talk about the right-of-way. Whitford
Okay.
Avenue is a
Mhm.
town-accepted
Okay.
street, and at the end of Whitford Avenue, there is a right-of-way from the town that the town has. I would let the solicitor speak to any right-of-way issues on that. This is Whitford Avenue as part of a maintenance agreement for the subdivision of the lots
I
located.
realize that, but I do want to sort of address that because I
Sure.
was buffaloed by that, by her phrasing. Most roadways exist within a right-of-way. Most roadways are smaller than a right-of-way. I don't understand what she means by the difference.
Do you-
That would create two separate right-of-ways to do what she was trying to do.
Were you aware of that?
Well, her comment, she basically said there should be a road and a separate right-of-way, and I'm like, have never heard of that, so.
With all due respect, conceptually, I don't think she had the idea of Whitford Avenue being a road that then goes into the right-of-way. You know, it all is a right-of-way. It gets
Exactly.
a town-accepted road.
It is
And then it narrows down to a 4-foot
two-way
right-of-way.
two-way right-of-way.
I just think there was a little, probably miscommunication or misunderstanding.
I think a misunderstanding.
Okay, yeah, that was, okay, I just wanted, sorry, I
But I'm
just
not
wanted to.
talking about right-of-way.
No, okay, all right. Duly noted.
So my request would be that you guys agree to execute the provisions based on the solicitors and my comments from the last meeting as well, that we're all on board with this agreement.
Peter? Yes?
I have no objection to any of the recommendations Christian made. In fact, the first writing I did when I had the indemnification language, I put that in because it was my understanding at the time when I wrote that this roadway was going to be improved for the inclusive use of the lot owner. But subsequently, I wrote it while it was still pending review and approval at the planning commission. The planning commission approved the roadway improvements, required an additional improvement at the end of this approved roadway area. If you notice on the plan that's attached, there's a little kind of hammerhead. There's a diagram that shows you the right of way. You don't have it?
I'm not sure if we have it this time. Maybe we had it last time. Do you have it? Yeah, we don't have it this time. We had it last time, sorry.
I can almost guarantee you I have a,
Bless you.
yeah, I'm just trying to get I'm gonna get a bigger one.
Oh, is that it?
Right, we had it the last time.
Yeah, we did.
The issue that we're talking about here, and I can walk it down, but there's a little turnaround right here. There's a little hammerhead turnaround, and then that would be used to walk 4 foot right away.
So the planning commission required an improvement that required his client to improve the driveway to allow parking of the public.
Okay, yeah, I remember that.
It's just a dimension, so it's not a number of spaces.
Is it 30 feet? How many feet?
How many? Two spaces maybe. And the reason I'm pointing this all out is, I didn't know there was a public element.
Yes.
When I wrote my original draft. And I would not expect his clients to indemnify the town.
Right, I remember that,
The town
yeah.
isn't letting the public to use the roadway. Previously, I thought it was private only for his client's use, and that the town had no invitation for the public to travel on that road other than walk. So if a vehicle went down the road, it was his client's risk, not the town. But now, the planning commission changed that relationship and said, anybody in the world can drive a car down that roadway, which is their driveway, and park a vehicle, and then walk the rest of the right of way. That changed everything.
Actually, to the point of it being a right-of-way, it makes it better for people trying to access the
Because the
right-of-way.
public can, they don't
Park
have to
there.
walk the whole length, they can drive and park, right? So I don't object to that last indemnification that we didn't need to remove, but I wanted to explain to you how that
Sure.
happened and why I don't object.
So I would move to approve this with the changes that Christian has handwritten into the road use and maintenance agreement.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous, thank you.
Yes. Okay, Exhibit A. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christian. Do you have a dog? No, I'm just kidding. Okay, next item is C, review, discuss, and/or take action to approve changes and adjustments to the department directors and non-union personnel manual effective July 1st, 2022. What did I miss? I missed B? Oh, my God. I checked it off and I shouldn't have.
But B, you can't participate.
Yeah, I can do 69, right? I can't do 68. Sorry. I'm sorry I skipped that, okay. Next item is actually B, review and discuss or take action and/or vote to authorize the town administrator, Hainsworth, to sign the NAGE 69 contract agreement effective July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2025.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. It's unanimous. Moving on to C, this is to approve changes and adjustments to the department directors and non-union personnel manual effective July 1st, 2022.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you.
Thank you for making those changes.
Yes. Item D is to review and/or take action or vote for the Jamestown Golf Course Clubhouse, the usage proposal. We have a memorandum from Parks and Recreation Director DeFalco for usage proposal and draft Jamestown Community Group application. Hey, hi, Ray.
Hello. Hello, everybody. How are you today?
Good, how are you?
Doing well.
Good.
So I wrote up this a memo just with the proposal of, usage for the golf course function rooms, the clubhouse function rooms. I kind of outlined some of the goals of the proposal and the goals of the use of the space, just to provide accessible, affordable meeting spaces for town residents and town groups, to protect the investments of the Jamestown residents in golf course, clubhouse function, and conference rooms for continued use for years to come, for the use of the space to be at least self-funded and to cover all costs that's not subsidize the operations of the function and conference rooms, to generate revenue for the support of the town and the recreation department, but as everybody knows about the challenges that we face using the space, the limited parking during the peak season operational hours of the Jamestown Golf Course, the sharing of the building space to not interfere with the golf course operations, to adequately staff the spaces for town departments and town appointing committees, local volunteer community groups for a reasonable fee to cover staffing costs, and to protect event space for private functions, or to provide event space for private functions that are reasonably priced while generating revenue for the town and the recreation department, and to establish a list of pre-approved local community groups with a vested application process. This list of groups to have access to the space at a reasonable cost. So basically we have, the two different portions of this. There's the municipal use and then there's like the private use. So for town groups, town departments, and then these approved groups, there's like, the one set of kind of what I proposed, and then for the private as well. So the inaugural season would be July 1st, which is already passed, but we would pick this up whenever, if we approve it. Through September 30th, the use of the golf course clubhouse event space will be limited to town departments, town-appointed committees, and local community groups between 7 p.m. and 11 p.m. when the use will lessen the impact of the available parking. Considerations for small groups, 15 participants maximum, for programs, meetings, or events requested by town departments, town-appointed committees, and local community groups during the hours of 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. will be made. The recreation department, the town department that wishes to use the space would just schedule through the recreation department, and we'll have a process with a checklist, and, you sign out a key kind of thing so we can, lessen the impact on staff and costs there. And then it'll allow for flexibility for use for that space. The private use for the space would begin October 1st and run through May 13th. The reason it's May 13th is the Fort Getty opens on the 11th, and we usually don't do any pavilion events until the 14th because all the RVs are coming in, so we wait until that Sunday or Monday to start those pavilion events. So it would cover, there would only be a little bit of overlap from pavilion events to the golf course events for private events. And then we would look after a year of this, and I would do a report and say, this is how it worked. Do we think we need to change it? Can we open up more private use for the summer, or, and kind of just see how it went, and then can change things as it goes. And then, the proposed fee schedule for the local community groups, if it was during business hours where somebody could just go and open for them, give them that list of things that they were expected to do using the space, make sure it's, tidied up, and make sure all the, the doors are closed, and, the chairs are put back and things like that. Really wouldn't have any other associated costs, maybe some toilet paper, electricity, something here or there, which, I think would kind of shake out a little bit over the year. But then if it's after hours, where we have to provide a staff member there to kind of monitor, close up, open up, a minimum of 3 hours for $75, it would pay for the staff, but then also cover any incidentals, probably even from anybody using the rooms in the daytime. And then there's the local community group list proposal, which, because I know what happens for the pavilion, when local community groups want to get fees waived, they put it on the agenda and they propose their events here, and they can get, could make the agenda long and for you guys, and I figure if we could have this list for this space, it could be more accessible to them, be less work for you to have to go through each one. If we know Jamestown community course or something, where you're just going to say, yes, of course you can use the room, we'll just automatically be able to say, all right, you're in the system already, you've been approved by the council, and let's just let you use the room, and so that'll kind of help in that area. And then because what happens when you say Jamestown community groups, you might get someone to start a group just because they want to use the room and they don't want to pay, or things like that. So I try to put some sort of criteria that would just show, what we mean by a Jamestown community group, a group which consists of Jamestown residents who work for the benefit of Jamestown residents. And that would be all up to your approval as well. If they would apply, you say, this makes sense, you belong in this group or don't. I have an application that I kind of drafted up, which gives us, the different, all the information we could get from these groups. You could find out what the percentage of Jamestown residents were in the group. I remember we had a Newport singing group that came over here, and it might have some people from Jamestown, but then it would be up to the council to say, all right, it looks like you're 75% Jamestown, you might have some people from out of town, but I feel that, that would work for this purpose. And then if you're nonprofit, then we wouldn't charge the $25 application fee. The application fee is really to not incentivize people to just come and apply just so they can use the building for free, pretty much.
Those ad hoc committees.
And you can't, do you see, because I think you've thought of pretty much everything. I was just going to commend you on what a great job you did.
Thank you. That's really good.
Thank you.
But I think you've thought of just about everything, like I said. But, you wouldn't expect, let's see, I'll use the women's group for example. You wouldn't expect any of the groups to have a standing, we have a meeting once a month, let's say the third Wednesday or whatever. You wouldn't do something like that, would you?
Well, I think if the women's group said we would like to have you would have to apply for each time, I think.
Each time, okay.
Each time. And if you want to put in and schedule that with us, and we had the time there, and we could accommodate, then I would say that we would accommodate that.
Yeah. But, I wouldn't expect you to, but yeah.
You wouldn't just say, we're going to use it every third Friday, because then it wouldn't be necessarily fair for,
That's what I'm thinking.
people down the line.
Yeah.
So it would have to be, I don't know if we would do it by season, maybe we'd say you can only apply so many months. That's actually a good point, how do you know somebody's I just want to use, every Friday for the rest of time or something.
I know.
All right,
Well, it wouldn't be fair if somebody else wanted to come in and rent it.
So maybe for those types of events, we'll have to do maybe a maximum of until January 1st or something, then or some sort of date where you'd have to apply each time, but then, as opposed to just kind of going for
One of the things that...
I like the construction of it as it relates to the first season, the season right now. It's a little disappointing, I must say personally, but not from your perspective, you did a great job with what you had, that we are seem to be limited by the conflict about the parking. But we have several months to work on ideas of how to remedy that. And hopefully, as you say, next May when we revisit it, we'll have some experience under our belt and maybe a solution so that we can really get the bang for the buck in the summer also.
I think we'll have a good idea of how much conflict there'll be with these community groups and other groups trying to use it, or different programs, especially with 15 participants. Say you had 15 cars, right? And then you could say, was there any instance where they reported no parking, and how many times was that?
Right.
And then you could say, well, we probably could accommodate up to 40 people, and you just kind of feel it out like that. And I'm hoping through just kind of like easing into this, we'll be able to get a good policy moving forward.
Right.
Makes total sense.
I think in part, Ray, because you were articulate about the goals and the challenges, and I think everything emerged from that, and I think you did a great job.
Thank you.
Good job.
Yeah. So I would move to approve.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Great.
It's unanimous. Thanks again, Ray.
No problem, thank you.
All right. Moving right along to new business.
Do you have one on you right now? Body camera?
Have you changed your mind since our conversation that day in the golf course?
What's that?
You and I were speaking they were practicing burning down they were practicing, we talked a little bit about your beliefs about body cams and that type of thing.
Yeah, so body-worn cameras I would suggest are almost an expectation in modern policing today. Beginning back in 2020, there was significant discussion in Rhode Island about how to make that happen for every police officer across the state. And in 21, the General Assembly adopted a budget which included funding body-worn cameras for the majority of frontline police officers across the state through a grant program through the state of Rhode Island. And we, Jamestown, agreed to be part of a federal grant program that would subsidize that program. So I just bring it to your attention that unless there's an objection this evening from the council, it is our intent that we will be pursuing the body-worn cameras through the grant program. To us, it's about $33,000 per year. That's the cost of those cameras. It's not an inexpensive endeavor. We expect that to be funded through the grant programs for a period of 5 years, and we will evaluate what that looks like after the 5th year. With that, one of the caveats of participating in the grant program is that we must adopt the statewide model policy, which is developed by the Police Chiefs Association, the State Police, and Attorney General. So it talks about when that camera is used, what is public, what is not. So the cameras themselves, just for your information, cameras themselves are fairly inexpensive, usually about $400 or $500. It's the storage of the video that is extremely expensive, right? Because most of it is cloud-based storage, depending on what vendor we use to do that. And there's also the back-end administration of that, right? So all of that data has to be maintained, cataloged in some fashion. When people request it from the public, we have to go through, edit that, determine what is public, what is not public. It is a public document. That's a significant addition to our workload, which the grant will help us subsidize in terms of being able to pay for staff to be able to do that. So that's where there are. I don't need an action necessarily unless you are objecting tonight. I have a responsibility under the grant program to inform you about it. If you decide to put it on a future agenda, you can, in order to learn more about it and object to it if you feel necessary, but I don't necessarily need an action tonight to move forward.
Okay. I mean, I don't have any objections.
I don't have any.
Thank you.
No objection.
Thank you.
No. Thank you, Chief. Okay. All right. This is to order to advertise in the Jamestown Press. Amendments to the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 14, Buildings and Buildings Regulation, Article 5, Short-Term Rentals. So this is just to notice advertisement.
It's just to order advertised. I think that we have come a long way through this and many iterations. I think that what the solicitor has pounded into my head, finally, is that it's necessary to get this in, which actually the planning commission probably would have said, about 2 years ago, but it's necessary to get the information, to get the folks lined up, registered, that kind of thing, to find out the data, before you, can do anything about, so as you know, so we know where there are issues, if there are issues. The things that I think that this ordinance does is it brings it, there's a mechanism that is quite public. It is us that gives the licenses. That's through a kind of form of a public hearing. And so if somebody's not having a problem, they would be approved through the consent agenda. And if there is a problem, then the public and the neighbors can come forward. So I think I would recommend that we order it advertised. I probably have some questions. I just got a question about houseboats, Peter, today, and I just didn't know, but that may take it something else to...
Well, I will tell you, you have no jurisdiction below the mean-high water mark to regulate.
Okay, well, that's...
That's through the harbor.
All
What
right,
if they park their boat in their driveway?
What?
What if they park their houseboat in their driveway?
That's in our...
I know, it's a trick question.
Yeah. So, anyway.
So can we also add or take?
No, you can.
So, Peter, after reading this, I was just thinking, when it talks about what the impact is of the short-term rentals are on the community, the one thing that it didn't mention, I think it's because it's unique to towns like Jamestown, is what it does to our volunteerism, and i.e. the fire department, which, relies... Does it? Where?
Yeah, it says,
I'm sorry, I
right
missed
below
it.
that, it says, has forced out the younger generation of town residents to other communities, reducing
Oh,
economic
okay.
diversity and community
All
volunteers.
right, I don't know, I missed that one. I was highlighting them. I missed that one, sorry, but I think that's, I know that
It's essential.
it's huge and essential, yeah. Okay, so
I think over time, in a year or two, once you put this in place, you can probably better analyze the impact it's having on your community, because you'll see the extent, see the location, and you might be able to extrapolate some data. I don't know, Elaine's gonna have to look at it, but what is it doing to the housing market? You can't answer any of those questions.
No, not with scientific, not with proof, no. Okay.
After a conversation with Peter today, I finally got the broad scope idea of what it would accomplish in the short term, is to give us a feel for just what the universe of rentals is, where they are, what kind they are, et cetera, and I support it completely. Having said that, I did see three specific things that I would urge that before, if we're inclined to consider advertising it, that we think about whether we want to strike, so that should there be a public meeting, the public meeting isn't bogged down with nitpicky edits. The first one is on of our package tonight, page 61, and it's section 1484, part B, and it talks about the registration form, and it says copies of registration form with 24 hours, 7 days a week contact information for the record owner, and if applicable, the local representative. I'd strike the word "and which," because it's not as written a sentence. Will be held on file by the registrar, because the town clerk is the registrar, and available to the public, I would say, rather than Jamestown Fire Department and Police Department. The reason I say that is that I could see the advantage in the execution of an ordinance, should we pass it, should it pass the scrutiny of the public hearing, that I personally I assume this didn't intend the registration to mean that only the police and fire department get to see it. If I have a concern about a neighbor who has a rental, I hope that I could have access to the form that was on file. So I would just recommend for fellow councilors' consideration, that amendment. The second one was, on the next page, section 1486, registration and license fees. I'm not sure this is necessary, but I would propose to add the word annual. There shall be an annual registration and license fee, as it's written. And then, the first time that you mentioned the registration and license fee, it says $350. The second time is resident short-term rental unit and a registration fee. That add the word "and license," because it's a registration and a license fee, whichever of the numbers you're paying. And then the most important one is the last sentence: registration and license fees are required to be paid upon application and are non-refundable. It's my understanding, and I think I understand this now, that the intent of the drafters was to make those fees, $350 or $700, non-refundable whether or not your license was approved. And so I would urge that we strike the words "or dependent on the license being issued by the licensing authority." If I'm mistaken about the intent, I would see it differently. And the last one, the most substantive one, is section 1491, section E. And in that one, the intent seems to be that the licensing authority, us, the town council, would have the power and responsibility in appropriate circumstances to revoke a license. However, we set out a scheme in this section whereby the building official refers it to us, it seems like only if there have been 3 violations within a calendar year. And having dealt in another job in life with statutes that require 3 drunk drivings or 3 domestic violence assaults within a prescribed period, that's a pretty high bar. And I could imagine, I hope it would never come to pass, but qualitatively, you could have a first violation that's so shocking and such a head-turner that it warrants referral immediately for consideration by the council for revocation. So I don't have the language down perfectly, but I would urge us to consider striking the requirement that the building official needs 3 strikes before he refers it to us, and then change it with words like the building official with, or the enforcement officer, for cause, just cause shown, may refer a matter for us for consideration of whether to revoke.
So instead of if 3 or more notice a violation, it would just say for just cause shown?
Yeah.
Okay.
That works. So I would move to make those 3 amendments before we move about whether to
And I
advertise.
Yep.
second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 It's unanimous.
Yep.
May I, just ask, is it all right if I make those amendments? I show them to Randy before we go to advertise it to make sure I capture what he just said?
Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I would move
Yeah.
that.
Then it'll go on.
Right.
Okay. Yep, that's good.
Yeah, because it's not so long.
Right.
All righty.
Good luck finding me.
Oh. All right.
I just want to make one comment on this. This is a phenomenal effort. I really think it's important that we get it out as soon as possible so that we can have a little bit more debate. The only thing that kind of concerns me a little bit here, and I'm not even sure where I land on this yet, but it's still the parking issue and requiring 2 off-street parking spaces per home. Especially in town, there are a lot of folks who have houses who don't have any parking. I know on my street there's several people that don't have wouldn't even have the space on their lot to put a driveway. And I don't want to incentivize people paving the little bit of yard maybe that they have. So the only thing that I would ask is, what is the problem that we were trying to solve by that, or our intention? And let's make sure that we're meeting our
What I would
intention.
just say to you is the reason, we can always be more lenient, as Peter has told us. So if we have to go into this, that's been in documents from the planning commission from the start. So there must have been, I share your concerns, actually. I don't see why, parking on the street isn't allowed. But
And maybe it's not okay in certain places, right?
Yeah,
I would get that.
so I think that what when we have the public hearing, that can be a discussion, that can also be, that could get made more lenient. But that's... No, that's possible. But it has been a discussion, it's been a fervent concern of some of the folks, particularly who have to enforce it, so.
Sure, and yeah, maybe...
I would just say that, the planning commission has talked about it, and I would say one of the only people that attended every single one of the planning commission meetings, that was the issue. And it wasn't necessarily that it was clogging up the street, although it did on occasion, she said, but it was that they were parking all over the place. It was like very haphazard and, 9, 10 cars, and so having it more organized, I think, is, generally more acceptable to the neighborhood.
Yeah.
It was a chronic problem.
The challenge, too, is then, even if they have the driveway, you can't make them park in it. So, that's a different issue. So I just want to make sure that we get after whatever we think the problem is, and don't incentivize something.
More resident on-street parking permits gonna be provided.
Right.
I would also say that and I don't know whether this was intentional, I just caught it when I read over it again today, in that section, 1487C, on the very bottom, when it talks about off-street and on-street at the very end, it basically what we're saying is that all these spots have to be off-street.
Right.
But at the very end, we say, that if you don't have them, if you can't meet that standard, then you get reduced, your number of bedrooms and occupancy gets reduced, to conform to the available amount of off-street and on-street. It's the first time we mention on-street.
Right.
Right there. And I don't know whether that was just a layover from maybe a previous
I suspect,
version, because that would pretty much, everybody would say, I can't meet it on site, and so they would be then parking on the street.
Right.
So I just wanted to point that out, that it may have been a little bit of an oversight there.
Yep, would you ask us then to strike and on-street?
I would say that's more consistent, because we don't mention it up until that point.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd make a motion that we ask that to be struck.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous.
With the mindful, as with Eric, that I share that concern that we might actually open it up, but just to be consistent. We'll now guarantee that there are people complaining, but...
Okay. Yep. All right, so we don't do anything with that, because that's just an order to advertise, right?
Yeah, and we...
Okay. Yep. All right. Next, we have appointments, vacancies, and expiring terms. Jamestown Bike Committee. This is for the ad hoc committee. Let's see, go ahead, Mary, you want to speak to that?
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm tired of talking. Go ahead.
What I had asked, I'd like to modify the charge, and so the charge might say that it may include 2 representatives of rolling agenda and may include up to 4 additional citizens at large, that is, additional to the 2 citizens at rolling agenda. However, if rolling agenda doesn't have 2 people to put for us, that's fine, and if there aren't other up to, we don't have to find 4. And part of that, and so I'd make a motion to change the charge, first of all, I guess.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Here, do you want this too?
No, I'm just trying to get it,
Okay.
it's getting late.
I know, we're all getting a little punchy. Okay, so we have a motion, second. All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous,
Sorry.
thank you. That's okay.
But part of the reason I wanted to do that is because I thought we had some wonderful applicants for this.
Absolutely.
And it's really hard to choose between them, but I think Professor Colley was impressive, and I think would be a really great asset to this. I also really liked Richard Smith, who was not a biking guy. He was a family guy, and he was wondering about making sure that the path can be appropriate for folks walking on it too. I like Mr. Shuey very much, but I think I was also impressed with Steve Engberg and John Hamill. And they were, so those would, Jeremy Colley, Steve Engberg, John Hamill, and Richard Smith would be the folks that I would nominate for
Second.
the tree committee.
Wait a minute, you had a question? Comment?
The four again were
Jeremy Colley,
Smith,
Engberg, and Hamill. I know that Michael Hill was the only person who came with a letter of recommendation. But I thought,
digesting.
yeah.
Now, Steve Enberg is the person that you know that,
I do, I know him.
he's the pilot, correct?
Right.
Yes.
Hamill is the person who lived in Arlington, Mass.
Right, exactly.
And I remember Richard Smith as well as being, I think,
Remind me, Richard.
to me, he'd be the,
What stood out about him?
Richard, well, he was the fellow, he was, not the last, but he was the fellow who had a family,
The
a kid.
engineer, he lives on the north end?
Well, he lives in the shores, I think on Capstan, and he had kids, and he was, his very first statement was, I'm not a biker.
Yes,
You know, and he said, and I thought.
I think he was from here, correct?
Yeah, and I think the fact that somebody who was not a biker applied to be, I thought was terrific, and brings a perspective that I think is great.
I tell you what got me about Mr. Engberg was when he said, it may not be me, but for future generations, you know what I mean? To me, that was like, that just spoke volumes, so. So you're making a motion that we vote for them?
Those four.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I second it.
You second it? Okay.
Not to move it along or anything, but.
Okay, no. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous, those four. Did you get those, Roberta? Okay, thanks.
In terms of the next appointment, Ms. Repko, two things. One, folks on the tree committee had said that they knew that there were additional applicants to the tree committee, but they had somehow screwed up their applications or whatever. I think they applied to the tree committee. So, I think they're trying to do, I would ask that we maybe pause on this appointment.
Okay.
We'd also should obviously, meet, or interview Ms. Repko, as well as any other folks. And I'd love to tell Ms. Repko with her particular skill set, if she would like to apply for the zoning board, because she was a landscape architect. And I think that would be fabulous to have on the zoning board. But anyway, we can do that when we interview her. So I'd just like to.
You want to just hold,
if we could table
table
this
that one?
appointment.
Okay.
Yep.
Did
Sure. Yep.
did anybody see,
Yes, schedule interviews, Roberta, it's not just for her, but for anybody else.
did anybody see the tree committee in the 4th of July parade? Because I did.
The tree committee.
They were all wearing trees on their head, but anyway. Okay, so we're going to table that one. Okay, so the next one is, this is just to order to advertise. Oh, I know why.
Yeah.
Alex Finkelman has submitted a letter of resignation to the zoning board.
Move to, order that advertised.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Anybody want to make a motion to?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. The council acknowledges communications.
Can we just call out, in the communications, the great outpouring of, information and requests from the 5th grade?
I thought that was terrific.
That was, phenomenal to see.
I think
Yeah.
that was great.
I love seeing civic engagement from our kids.
Exactly. We'll talk more about that, because, we have some ideas.
Yeah.
But anyway, okay, so,
Move to adjourn.
thank you.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you, everyone. Tina, thank you you sat there all night and